The chains that bind. The Zara Collective arrived in our solar system on what history would later call the Day of Falling Stars. Their vessels, massive hexagonal structures with pulsing blue energy conduits, darkened the skies above every major city on Earth. We weren't prepared. We had barely established outposts on Mars and Europa. Our greatest achievement had been the development of efficient fusion drives that allowed us to begin true interplanetary colonization. We thought they came as explorers or diplomats. They called themselves the Zara, a peaceful collective of enlightened species who had achieved perfect harmony through their natural hierarchy. Their ambassador, High Commander Ventura, addressed the United Nations with promises of technology, knowledge, and prosperity. A glorious future awaits humanity, Ventura proclaimed, his translucent skin shifting through patterns of blue and green that we would later learn signified smug satisfaction. As junior partners in our great collective. Junior partners, the first lie among many. Within 3 weeks, they had integrated themselves into every level of Earth's power structures. Their technology seemed miraculous, curing diseases, solving energy crises, improving crop yields. They gave just enough to make us dependent, but never enough to make us truly understand. That was deliberate. Commander Sarah Chen of the North American Defense Coalition was among the first to recognize what was happening. They're cataloging us, she whispered during a classified briefing. 6 months after first contact. Assessing our capabilities, our resources, our usefulness. The room fell silent. General Abernathy's weathered face creased with concern as he studied the data. Usefulness for what? They didn't have to wait long for an answer. The subjugation began not with violence, but with economics. The Zara introduced a new resource exchange system, collective credits, that rapidly devalued Earth's currencies. Then came the protective fleet that established orbit around our planet for mutual security. Finally, the labor exchange program, where humans would work on Zara vessels and colonies to learn advanced techniques. Those who left never returned. When Indonesia refused to provide their annual quota of exchange workers, their capital was reduced to ash in minutes by a precision orbital strike. The message was clear: resist and be destroyed. Earth's militaries attempted a coordinated counterstrike. The Zara's response was swift and devastating. Our most advanced weapons couldn't penetrate their shields. Our encrypted communications were intercepted before we even sent them. They knew our every move before we made it. In the aftermath, humanity learned the truth of their position in the galaxy. We weren't partners. We were resources. Species 4876, classification. Abundant, physically viable, technologically primitive, read the official Zara designation for humans. Primary utilization. Manual labor and resource extraction in high-risk environments. We were slaves. For 3 years, humanity lived under the Zara's control. Millions were transported off-world to work in mines, on agricultural planets, or as servants in Zara households. Those who remained on Earth labored to extract resources to feed the ever-growing appetite of the collective. But the Zara made a critical error. They believed our compliance meant acceptance. They thought our silence meant submission. They failed to understand what humans do when pushed to the edge. We adapt, we learn, and then we strike back. In the methane mines of Proxima Centauri, Maya Okafor watched and listened. A former quantum physicist before the occupation, she had been selected for labor in the deepest tunnels because of her small frame. Day after day, she operated drilling equipment that the Zara wouldn't risk their own people to handle. The equipment uses quantum-locked manipulator fields, she whispered to Raj Patel, a former engineer working the same shaft. But their calibration is based on Zara physiology. The resonance patterns, they're different from ours. Around the same time, on a Zara agricultural world designated NH389, Thomas Reeve noticed something peculiar about the Zara's neural implants, the devices they use to communicate and control their technology. They can't function in high humidity environments. he told his cell of workers during their brief rest period. Their implants short out. That's why they never oversee the irrigation sectors themselves. Similar observations were being made across dozens of worlds. Humans, deemed too primitive to pose a threat, were privy to information and insights that the Zara never intended them to have. And in their arrogance, the Zara never bothered to monitor what their slaves might be learning. Back on Earth, Commander Chen, now leading a hidden resistance network, received these messages smuggled through the Zara's own supply chains. Piece by piece, a picture emerged of the collective's weaknesses, their blind spots, and most importantly, their technology. Their entire system depends on quantum entanglement communications, she told the assembled resistance leaders in an abandoned mine shaft beneath the Rocky Mountains. But the entanglement has to be refreshed every 42 hours through specialized terminals. If we can disrupt that process, General Abernethy, now scared from a Zara disciplinary action, nodded grimly. We'd need to hit them simultaneously across multiple worlds. The logistics alone. We already have people in place, Chen replied. What we need is a weapon they won't expect. In a hidden facility beneath the ruins of MIT, Dr. James Watkins led a team of scientists working with smuggled Zara technology. They had discovered something extraordinary. The Zara's neural interfaces could be hijacked and overloaded by specific frequencies that human brains could tolerate, but that would overwhelm Zara neural pathways. It's like their technology evolved to be perfect for them, Watkins explained, but that specialization becomes a vulnerability when faced with something different. Us. The Resistance called it the Forge, a device that could emit precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses that would devastate Zara neural networks while leaving humans unaffected. It wasn't just a weapon, it was liberation technology. But building it required components from Zara ships, and testing it meant revealing their hand. The decision wasn't made lightly. If we fail, Chen told her inner circle, humanity might never get another chance. And if we don't try, Abernethy countered, we'll never deserve one. The first test came at a small processing facility in what had once been Seattle. A single forge device, no larger than a briefcase, was activated during a shift change. The results exceeded all expectations. Every Zara in the facility collapsed, their neural implants overloaded. Their security systems, dependent on those same neural networks, went offline. Word spread through the resistance. Hope, that dangerous fuel, began to flow. On the mining world of Proxima Centauri, Maya Okafor received the plans for the forge through a coded message hidden in a maintenance shipment. We can build this, she told her fellow miners, with parts from their own equipment. Similar messages reached resistance cells on 17 Zora-controlled worlds. The plan was simple but daring. Coordinated strikes using the forge technology, followed by seizure of Zara vessels, communications hubs, and weapons platforms. The date was set, October 17, 2149, 3 years, 6 months, and 14 days after the Zara's arrival. The Resistance called it Liberation Day. The night before the uprising, Commander Chen gathered her core team one last time. Tomorrow, we either free humanity or we join the long list of species the Zara have extinguished, she said. Either way, we show them that humans don't accept chains. Across Earth and the slave worlds, humans prepared. Makeshift weapons were distributed. Forged devices were positioned. Communications protocols were established using old radio technology that the Zara had dismissed as primitive. As dawn broke over the Rocky Mountains, Chen sent the signal, a simple sequence of tones transmitted on multiple frequencies. The message was clear to those waiting. Break your chains. The liberation of humanity had begun. The fire that frees. The first reports came from the agricultural world, NANI 389. Thomas Reeve and his cell activated their forge device during the planet's artificial rainstorm cycle, when humidity levels were highest and Zara oversight was minimal. The effect was immediate and devastating. Every Zara within 3 kilometers dropped. their neural implants emitting high-pitched whines before failing completely. Sector 7 is secure, Reeve transmitted using a reprogrammed Zara communication terminal. Moving to the ship docks. Similar messages flooded in from across the galaxy. On mining outposts, processing stations, and transport hubs, humans rose up in perfect synchronization. The forge devices paralyzed Zara command structures, while human laborers, deemed too primitive to require constant supervision, seized control with surprising efficiency. Back on Earth, Commander Chen directed operations from the Resistance headquarters beneath the Rockies. Screens displayed incoming status reports from around the globe and beyond. Sydney sector cleared. Tokyo defense grid under human control. Moscow reporting Zara forces in full retreat. Not all reports were positive. In the European sector, a forge device malfunctioned, allowing Zara forces time to deploy countermeasures. In Brazil, Zora commanders executed hundreds of human workers before resistance forces could reach them. "We knew there would be losses," General Abernethy said grimly as the casualty reports came in. "But we're winning." Indeed, humanity's coordinated attack had caught the Zara completely unprepared. Their strategies had always assumed that inferior species lacked the capacity for complex, multi-planet operations. They had no contingency for a slave uprising of this magnitude. In orbit around Earth, a small team led by former astronaut Camila Rodriguez used a smuggled forge device to disable a Zara patrol ship. Within minutes, they had control of the vessel and were firing on the main Zara command carrier. "This is for Jakarta," Rodriguez transmitted as the patrol ship's weapons tore into the carrier's engines. On Proxima Centauri, Maya Okafor led miners in an assault on the central processing facility. Their forge device had disabled the facility's defenses, but Zara reinforcements were incoming. "We need to access their main quantum communications array," Maya shouted over the sound of approaching ships. "If we can disrupt their entanglement refresh cycle, we can cut off this entire sector." Raj Patel, bleeding from a wound in his side, nodded. "I'll get you there." Together with a dozen miners armed with repurposed drilling equipment, they fought their way to the facility's core. The Zara, stripped of their neural advantages, proved physically weaker than humans, especially humans hardened by years of brutal labor. Maya reached the communications array, a pulsing column of blue energy surrounded by crystalline structures. "The quantum patterns," she muttered, studying the flow. "They're using a standard Schrödinger-Lanczos algorithm." With quick, precise movements, she reconfigured the array's controls. The blue energy flickered, then shifted to a deep red. "What did you do?" Raj asked, keeping watch at the door. Maya's expression was grim but satisfied. "I inverted their entanglement pattern. Now when they try to refresh their communications network." An explosion rocked the facility as the first Zara reinforcements landed outside. "We need to move," Raj urged. "Not yet," Maya replied, eyes fixed on a countdown displayed in Zara numerals. 3, 2, 1. The red energy pulsed once, brilliantly, then stabilized. Throughout the facility, remaining Zara communication devices went dead. Outside, the incoming ships suddenly lost coordination, several colliding in their confusion. "Now we can go," Maya said with a tight smile. Similar scenes played out across Zora space. Human resistance cells, long prepared and perfectly coordinated, struck at the heart of Zara control systems. The forge devices disabled their neural networks, while human ingenuity and determination did the rest. On Earth, the tide turned decisively when Dr. Watkins activated a planet-wide version of the forge. Every Zara on the planet and in orbit was simultaneously incapacitated. Their ships, dependent on neural-linked pilots, drifted aimlessly or crashed. All Earth sectors reporting Zara command structures neutralized, a communications officer reported to Chen. "We've regained control of 87% of orbital platforms." Chen nodded, but her expression remained tense. "And the Zara homeworld?" No response yet from the strike team. That was the most dangerous mission of all. A small force led by Colonel Javier Mendoza had used a captured Zara vessel to approach their homeworld, Zaraxis Prime. Their goal was to deploy a forged device at the heart of the collective's leadership, the Circle of Ascendants. Hours passed with no word. Then, just as Chen was considering the mission lost, a transmission broke through on all channels. "This is Colonel Mendoza broadcasting from the Chamber of Ascendants." His voice came through, strained but triumphant. "The Zara leadership has been neutralized." A cheer erupted throughout the command center. Chen allowed herself a brief smile before raising her hand for silence. "Casualties?" she asked. "Heavy," Mendoza replied. "Of the 12 who landed, only 3 of us remain. But we've secured their central command systems. You should see what we're seeing, Commander." The screens in the command center shifted to show an enormous circular chamber. At its center stood a massive crystalline structure, the physical embodiment of the Zara Collective's leadership consciousness. "Their entire civilization is built around this," Mendoza continued. "All their decisions, their strategies, their beliefs in their own superiority. It all flows from here." "Can you shut it down?" Chen asked. "That's just it, Commander. It's already shutting down. Their system can't comprehend defeat. Their entire collective consciousness is collapsing from the paradox." The crystalline structure on the screen was indeed darkening, fracture lines spreading across its surface. "We've recovered their central database," Mendoza added. "It contains information on every species they've enslaved or destroyed. Hundreds. Commander, we weren't the first, but I think we might be the last." In the days that followed, the full scope of humanity's victory became clear. The Zara Collective, spanning dozens of star systems and controlling hundreds of worlds, had been brought to its knees in less than 72 hours. But the aftermath presented new challenges. Freed slave species looked to humans for leadership, while Zara survivors, mostly civilians disconnected from the collective consciousness, faced an uncertain future. 2 weeks after Liberation Day, Commander Chen addressed an assembly of representatives from Earth and former Zara territories. The meeting took place in the reclaimed United Nations building in New York. "We didn't fight for vengeance," she told the gathered delegates. "We fought for freedom, not just our own, but for all beings who have been deemed inferior, exploitable, dispensable." She gestured to a group of non-human representatives, former slaves of the Zara from a dozen different species. The Zara Collective believed in a universe of masters and slaves. They believed some beings were inherently superior to others. That belief was their strength, and ultimately their downfall. Chen paused, looking out over the assembly. "We propose a different vision, not a collective that demands uniformity, but an alliance that celebrates diversity. Not a hierarchy of worth, but a community of equals. This is what we fought for. This is what so many died for." The response was immediate, a standing ovation that united beings from across the galaxy. In the years that followed, the alliance of free worlds became a reality. The technology of the Forge was adapted for peaceful purposes, leading to breakthroughs in medicine, communication, and space travel. Former Zara worlds were open to settlement by displaced species, and even those Zara who renounced their former ideology were eventually integrated into the alliance. Maya Okafor became the alliance's first Minister of Science, leading efforts to ensure that technology served all species equally. Thomas Reeve established agricultural collectives on formerly barren worlds, feeding billions. Colonel Mendoza directed the Alliance Defense Force, ensuring that no species would ever again be subjugated as humanity had been. As for Commander Chen, she declined all official positions, preferring to work behind the scenes to address lingering conflicts and build lasting peace. On the 5th anniversary of Liberation Day, she visited a memorial established in the Rocky Mountains, a simple stone obelisk engraved with the words, "For those who broke their chains and forged a new future." Standing before it, she was joined by General Abernethy, now walking with the assistance of a cane. "Do you think they'll come back?" he asked quietly, "or others like them?" Chen watched as the setting sun cast long shadows across the memorial. "If they do," she replied, "they'll find something they never expected." "What's that?" "A galaxy that remembers what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness, patience for acceptance, or adaptation for submission." She placed her hand on the memorial stone, feeling the names engraved there, the fallen who had made victory possible. "They called us inferior," she said quietly. "They made us slaves. And in doing so, they taught us how to be free." Across the galaxy, on worlds once dominated by the Zara Collective, beings of all forms and origins looked up at the stars not with fear, but with possibility. The chains were broken. The fire of liberation had burned through an empire of subjugation, leaving in its place something new, a future forged not by masters and slaves, but by equals. The Zara had sought to define humanity by its place in their hierarchy. Instead, humanity had defined itself by refusing to accept any hierarchy at all. That was a lesson the galaxy would not soon forget.